I am dreaming of warmer weather because it is still cold where I live here. Some days we get lucky and get up into those 70s temperatures and all of my flowers are blooming in my garden, but those nights are still so cold. Today's episode is going to be 6 happy projects using Dollar Tree supplies. I am so thrilled to share all these with you today. Tips, tricks, and techniques. Now come along and let's make something beautiful for our homes. This DIY is super simple, and we're going to be using this freebie that has these beautiful sunflowers on it. We're going to use an old food can, a sunflower, and then a piece of foam. Start by cutting out the size of the printable that you would like. I'm going to use the smallest one since I'm using a small food can. You can also use these printables in a frame or in any other kind of project that you might want to. Add some E6000 to the corner since we're going to be putting this on a metal can, and then a little bit of hot glue around those edges just to make sure that it bonds quickly. I like to do both because this is going to add a nice bond since we're going to be putting it on metal. The hot glue itself would just pop right off. So I'm going to go ahead and rub that down, and while that all locks into place, I'm going to get this piece of foam and go ahead and cut out a piece that is going to be down to the right size to fit into the can. Once I've got that cut out and I know that it fits, I'm going to go ahead and add on some E6000 to the bottom of my foam piece, as well as some hot glue. And then I'm going to just put that right back down in there and make sure it's nice and secure and glued to the bottom of the can. Now we're going to take this can and we are going to make it look really rustic. I'm going to just take some brown paint and I'm going to just tap all along the edges of that printable, and I kind of go back and forth between the pressure of adding a thick amount of paint to a very light dry brush of the paint. This is really going to add that rustic look to it. Then I'm going to lock it all in with my heat gun. The can will heat up, so be careful with touching the can when you're using a heat gun. And then I'm going to take my paintbrush that I used earlier, get off a lot of the paint, and now we're just going to dry brush on around the rest of the edges of that printable. Now it's time to start inserting your sunflower, and I wanted to have a nice long stem like you would see out in the garden. I'm going to add a black and white gingham bow, and then I'm going to just put that right where the leaves meet up on the stem. I thought that would be so darling. I don't know what it is about bows, but they always just make me so happy on projects like this. So I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue and then put that right on the flower. I think it adds such a pretty feminine touch to it, even though the can is all rusty. And then the last thing I'm going to add on is a little bit more hot glue, add in some of this Spanish moss, and tuck it down into the can. And at this point, it is just such a darling home decor piece that costs almost nothing. Our supplies for this DIY are going to be 3 of these 8x10 canvases, some rope, and then a hard sign that you can pick up from the Dollar Tree. In fact, all of these are coming from the Dollar Tree, as well as some thicker tongue depressor popsicle sticks. We're going to be using all of these supplies to create a beautiful, bright, and coastal looking crate. Now you can paint these whatever color you want, but I just thought this coral color, when you see the finished look, is going to be so pretty for the summertime to use, and you could even take it over into the fall time as well, and technically in the springtime too. So you can see there that I removed the canvas fabric. I always like to keep the canvas fabric, but I pull off the sides just because those are bent and stapled. So I always just put that to the side to keep it, and then the scraps I throw them away. And now I'm going to take that frame, the wood frame, and I'm going to make my mark line, and I'm going to use my craft knife to score this board, and it'll snap really easy. I scored it 3 times, and then once you've got it snapped, you're going to want to cut off any extra hangover that you can see here that I'm needing to cut off. And sometimes you have to turn the board over a little bit to make sure you get it all. I just keep rotating it until I get every part where it's nice and smooth. Now we're going to take our hot glue and we are going to glue that board down onto the frame, or the frame onto the board. And now we're going to take those tongue depressor sticks. So here I am, I'm going to match 2 up together to start, and I'm just going to cut off the tops of the rounded part of them. We don't want those parts, we want them to be nice and flat. And then once I've got that, those are going to be our supports to build up our crate. But we're going to just go ahead and just take more sticks and we're going to keep cutting them all down, because we are going to need 16 of these. The 16 are going to allow us to be able to double them up so that the support is really strong. You could get away with doing 8, but I highly recommend, if you're building a crate, you want it to last long term, so go ahead and cut 16 of these, because then what we're going to do next is we are going to be gluing 2 together so that they're really strong and sturdy. This is going to allow the crate, like I said, over time to not have any issues with anything being in it and not being able to support it. We want it to be able to be strong enough. Now we're going to take those sticks that we have created where we're doubling them up, and we're going to glue them into the corner, and then we're going to use our staple gun. I use this thing all the time. I'll link it down below in my description box if you want to see the one that I'm using. And then, so you can see here, I'm putting them in the corners. I'm going on one side and the other side so that every corner is covered with these sticks that we have doubled up. And I'm just using 2 staples on each and every single one. And now at this point, once you've got your frame, you're going to see that these are nice and snug and secure and really strong. I'm going to start sliding on my extra 2 frames. I'm going to take one to the middle point and one up at the top. Make sure you add your hot glue in there to really make sure you're securing it, and then also add in those staples. Now at this point, we're going to create a pretty coral color. I didn't have a coral on me, and it's really easy to make coral. You just take some white, some orange, and a pink, and then add back in some more white if you feel like it's still going to be too dark, and then just simply mix it all together, and it makes the prettiest color. So again, orange, pink, and white, and you just mix, mix, mix until you get it to the look and desire that you want. Now I wanted it to be a really bright coral color. I thought this was going to be so pretty somewhere in my home. So in fact, while I was mixing this color, my daughter Miriam kept saying, "So are you making that for me? Are you making that for my room? Can I put my toys in it?" So I have a feeling she might hijack this if I try to decorate with it. It might end up in her room because she loved the color so much. But I'm just going to give it 2 nice coats of this color, making sure it's nice and polished and finished. And then on the bottom, I painted it white because I wanted to have a nice finished look at the bottom. So here I am, I'm just taking some of this ticking stripe that's blue and tan, and I'm just going to add that around to make sure that any staples where I stapled the frame to the base, that doesn't scratch a table. It'll have a nice finished look at that point. Now I'm going to take some of the rope from the Dollar Tree. I'm just wrapping it around, and then to create a really nice nautical finished handle, I'm taking another piece of twine and I'm wrapping it around. You can see here that I start with a little bit of hot glue and then I just wrap, wrap, wrap. Like I'm rapping, that was funny. And then I'm just going to glue it off and finish that look, and you're ready to display it somewhere in your home. Now for this DIY, we are going to be taking this printable of these 3 lemons blown up in size and 1 of these Dollar Tree canvas boards. I'm going to cut out all 3 of these lemons, and I'm going to stick really close to the edging of the lemon. You don't want any white to be on it. Once I have all of them cut out, you're going to also need to take a craft knife and cut out those tiny little areas where there is white still. And I went ahead and just popped those out. And then I put on some white paint with 1 little dot of black paint. I'm going to mix that together because we want a little bit of a streaking look, and that little dot of black paint is going to allow that to happen. I'm just going to keep streaking those lines because we're going to make this look like a shiplap board. Once I had that to a place I liked it to be, I went ahead and dried with my heat gun, and now I'm coming back in with a Sharpie pen. These are my favorite Sharpie pens, by the way. I'll link them down below. And then I'm going to add on my lemons with a nice coat of Mod Podge. Remember, don't forget to put some hairspray on the printables first so that they don't bleed on you, and allow them to really dry before you start using them. That's going to keep it from bleeding any of the ink. And then after that, I went ahead and just sealed all of my lemons on. And now I'm going to add on some lettering. Again, friends, I want to encourage you, have fun with lettering. I really love hand painting on my projects. I have been doing it for years, and I just find it so therapeutic. I just could sit here forever just working on these letters and just painting them. I just find them so fun. And I hear it all the time where friends are saying, I just don't feel like my handwriting is great. But mine wasn't either. I just have always just kept practicing and kept playing with it until I got it to a place that I liked. And there's so many great calligraphy books out there where you can practice. It's a great gift to pick up for yourself to practice when you have some downtime. Once I went over my letters a couple times to give it a nice font, thick, dark lining on it, I flicked on some little speckles of paint, and now I'm coming back in with my dark brown to give her that rusting look. I'm adding in a little bit more distressing where the shiplap lines are, and at this point I've gotten it to a place where I'm really happy with it and it's ready to be displayed. For this DIY, I took it outside and I spray painted a box from the Dollar Tree. I gave it 2 coats of white paint just to make sure the pattern was really covered and not seen. I love spray painting on these boxes more than I do using regular paint with a brush. I just feel like the finish is always so much better. So just know, for me personally, I like spray painting them, and then they dry so much faster. So these are all the greeneries you're going to see me using. You can see here that I took my lemons and I put a skewer stick that I cut down to size, and I stuck those in the lemons and glued them into place. And now I'm going to add some E6000 and some hot glue onto my foam square that I'm going to be pushing down into the box. Once I've got that down in there, I went ahead and I poked in a whole bunch of holes so that I can get in this boxwood into those spots. And I just pulled these off of a long garland from Hobby Lobby that I purchased, and it lasts me forever because I'm always just picking off of it and using it for my decor pieces. What a way to save a ton of money by just buying it on the long garlands and getting them half off when Hobby Lobby has them half off. And then I'm going to come in with some peony flowers and just all sorts of little cute spriggy type flowers that are just light and airy. It makes me think of summertime so much, and it really is giving you that farmhouse look without it being too over the top. I do love bright colors in my home, but I know some of you really want that farmhouse look to stay throughout the whole year, and you only want to add in maybe one color, which is a yellow color for the summertime. And this is a great way to do it. You keep your colors really neutral, and then you bring in that one pop of color just like I'm doing here. So at this point, I'm just putting in those lemons where I wanted them to be, right in the center of this decor floral piece. And then at that point, I decided I wanted to put a buffalo check ribbon around the front because I thought the yellow and the black and white would just be so pretty together and really just finish this look to give it a store-bought feel to it. This is the thing, friends. I say it all the time. Whether you're a new crafter or an experienced crafter, whichever one you are, there are so many fun things to try out there, and I hope that you will give some of my DIYs a try. I try to always be mindful of all the different levels of crafters to give everybody a chance to make something beautiful for their home. And then last, we're just going to add a bow, and it's ready to be displayed. The supplies for this DIY are going to be 4 of these jars from the Dollar Tree, which I love buying them there. I think these jars are so cute. Some fabric, I'm going to go with a black and white buffalo check, and then some florals. Now, sunflowers have been on my mind. I think it's just because they're so happy and I need that sunshine in my life right now. So I'm now going to take some foam core. After I have spray painted my jars white, I'm going to insert those in, and I'm going to take this fabric and I'm going to cut 4 strips just like you see me doing here, and I'm going to use that to tie around the necks of these jars. Now friends, I'm doing this project today because I want you to know that sometimes craft projects can be really overwhelming. Too big, too complicated, too crazy, right? But I also want you to not be discouraged if you're a new crafter. I want you to try crafting. I want you to try doing things that are just cute to make your house a home. So here I am. I just spray painted these jars white, and now I'm taking some fabric and simply just wrapping them around. And I'll tell you, they sell these jars over at home decor stores for way too much money. I made these whole arrangement that you're going to see here at the end for maybe about $5.50, and they would sell this way more, probably like 30-40 bucks. So here I am. I have painted them. I've tied these little scarves, I would say maybe, around the necks of these jars, and then I'm now going to insert some foam. And then I found this floral at the Dollar Tree. I was just so in love with these. They're so pretty. I love these. They almost look like a very opened rose or a peony. I think they're so pretty. So I'm just adding those in, and then I'm popping in 1 sunflower because I just want that little pop of sunflower in there. I'm adding in some of these cute berries, and then at this point, you know, I just am playing with it, having fun, adding more things. I also decided to add in a cotton stem. And then at this point, you can display these however you want all over your home. I'm going to use them in this tray to corral them together because I just think they're so cute to put this on a table somewhere in my home or an entryway. I love how they look all together. So I hope you try these DIYs out today because they are just so fun, and these particular ones that I did today are really easy to follow, and I hope you give crafting a try because it's meant to help us relax and just do something that we're proud of to bring into our home. I ended up picking up some of these florals from the Dollar Tree, one of their largest wreath forms. I think it's 24 inches. And then this is what drew the price up just a little bit. I got one of these long garlands from Hobby Lobby, and well, it's not a coupon anymore, but it was half off, so it was $12.99. And then you can see some of these picks I had on hand. I'm just going to use some little sprigs here and there. And then I actually used 4 packs of these lemons. And then I didn't show it, but I had 2 long skewer sticks, and that's why the price was driven up on this wreath. But again, it's still so much more affordable. So now I'm going to take the garland, and this is the greatest way to get greenery around on your wreath. I'm just going to zip tie it all the way around, and I love how this greenery looks, which is why I went with this one. And now I'm going to come back in with these peonies that they had at the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to bring in that wire long enough to be able to loop it around that joint where the zip tie is. And then I'm just going to lock it right into place with some hot glue. Then I come in with some of it's kind of like a buttery yellow rose that the Dollar Tree had at the beginning of spring. I really wanted everything to be very light and airy on this wreath. I thought it would be really pretty. Then I brought in some daisies and then some of these wispy yellow florals. I thought these were so cute and so dainty, the way that they would just blow in the wind on my front door. And then I brought back in that long floral here that you see me sticking in. I got these at Hobby Lobby a long time ago, and I just am forever like cutting off little stems of it. And I'm just going to add that down in there, and I always like to secure everything with a tiny little dot of hot glue. Now here comes that dowel stick or the skewer stick, where I'm just cutting it down because I want to make sure my lemons don't fall off of this wreath. So I'm just going to poke it in there and hot glue those into place. That way it has something for the hot glue to lock onto, because these, if you try to put hot glue on the lemons, it's too slick of a surface. It will just come right off over time. So I'm really always a big fan of making sure when you make something, take the time to make sure that it's actually locked into place so that it doesn't pop off. So I put 3 clustered together. So I added on this big bow, and here is the finished look. Look at how much money we saved. I hope you give some of these bright, happy colors a try in your craft room. I know some of us are just barely breaking into our spring colors, but it's always just around the corner. So I hope these inspire you. Please do give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below to let me know which one you like, if you like lemons or not. And don't forget to check this video out. I'm going to link it. It was from the other day. Thanks so much for stopping by, and until the next episode, bye friends.